Hello, everyone. This will likely be one of my controversial recordings. My channel has always kept politics out of it, and that's not going to change today. I am going to avoid politics in the comments and with what I'm saying, so be aware of that. This is just going to be my thoughts. If you want to watch a channel that goes more in depth with these topics, I'm going to link one in the description. It will be to Legacy Killer HD's channel. He does a really good job of discussing these in detail and being able to keep track of the conversation over long periods. Like unlike me, where I happen to just have goldfish status and blank out for a few minutes. Moving on. To get this started off, I think we need to state the obvious here. Rules and laws are required to a certain degree. Without rule or law, people will do what they want to. We are seeing that with EA and other greedy companies in the game industry. Until somebody contests them with a law, they are going to continue doing what they've been doing. It doesn't matter how much boycotting or backlash you give them, they will do whatever they want to until something stops them. So, with that said, there have been a lot of countries that have been trying to regulate or ban loot boxes. Out of all the discussions I've seen across the world, it's unfortunate that the United States and Canada has been pretty quiet. It would seem that the United Kingdom is having tons of conversations on it. I think that a good place to look for reading material on this is the United Kingdom. Their reports are public, and they have said a lot of interesting things, not just in the House of Commons, but also the House of Lords. An example would be this right here. Loot boxes have been defined as items in video games that may be bought for real-world money, but which provide players with a randomized reward of uncertain value. They often appear as chests, crates, or card packs. This is interesting because if you Google what is the definition of loot boxes, you'll get different takes on it, but they will usually share the chests and crates aspect of the definition. Card packs, though, that's new to me. I have not seen a definition of loot boxes that has added card packs to that. When I've had conversations in the past with other people regarding video games, there has been some people who have tried to defend the FIFA card packs as being a non-loot box. It was very easy to destroy that argument and tell them that they are loot boxes, but regardless, there are going to be people like that. So something like this clearly defines the parameters of loot boxes to a very high level. This is a regulatory body in the United Kingdom at the end of the day. But that's just the House of Commons. I'll link this in the description for you to read if you want. Moving on to the House of Lords. This is where things picked up because this was from a year or two ago. This was this year, so you'll notice that the article does make mention that makes mention of the past conversations regarding that they must act to bring the loot boxes within the gambling legislation regulation. There's a bunch more words here, but here's where it gets even more interesting with this particular article. You'll see right here, as part of the potential overhaul to the Gambling Act and last month called for evidence, the loot box section of the House of Lords reports argues the issue requires more urgent attention. Yeah, they are picking up steam with getting this regulated, and I am happy to see that, but we'll get into that in a minute. Moving on to some other countries where I think that you could read to kind of get more of a, I guess you can say, interesting input on the subject. You can look at Belgium and the Netherlands. I do recognize this as being authentic. I have read articles specifically to each country, but it says Belgium and the Netherlands have been leading the charge against loot boxes. having declared the business model illegal in April 2018. Following an investigation, Belgium's Gaming Commission found FIFA 18, Overwatch, and Counter-Strike Global Offensive to be in violation of its gambling laws. The Overwatch part I don't agree with, and I'll get to that in just a second. But what I would like to take from this is between Belgium and Netherlands and the United Kingdom, you should be able to get a really interesting viewpoint on the loot box topics. With all that said, now I'll go into what I think of it. To start, I completely understand that game development costs have gone up exponentially since I started gaming. We can see that with Cyberpunk costing $121 million and Witcher 3 costing $81 million. While game developers can pay this off, it all relies on them being successful with the game, obviously. If the game is not successful, then they have to find a way to make up for that somehow. I do not agree with the idea of that being loot boxes at all. I think that we can all agree, no matter your political standpoint, loot boxes are a bad idea. At least the ones that are paid for. Overwatch's loot box I'm okay with, just because of the fact that you can earn the loot boxes just by playing the game. That's fine with me. But the paid for loot boxes, that has got to go. There has got to be a better way for games to make up the money, or at least make more money. So in that regard, I think that they should be looking at other services, maybe a subscription. Maybe you could create, I don't know, say a subscription to the game developer company in which you get insider information regarding the upcoming changes, and you get some other little digital goodies such as a poster. That to me would be fine. If you want to do a subscription service like that, go for it. I think that would be a great idea. Microtransactions are okay with me as well, as long as they don't harm the game in any form. So that means boosting levels, adding bugs or glitches to the games, or disrupting the balance of the game. As long as the microtransactions you put in the game don't cause a problem in any one of those areas with the game, then I'm fine with it. People want to do that, then fine, go for it. But yeah, that's really my stance on loot boxes. Now, I want to finish the recording by saying a few things regarding this. With the way things are now, it's entirely possible for these game development companies to retaliate because there's not enough countries banning loot boxes. You see, if you only ban the loot boxes in, let's say, 5 countries, or whatever you want to call them, then the game developers can retaliate by just not selling there. That's really unfair to the citizens of that country. If they want to play the game, they should be allowed to. They shouldn't be punished just because a company is so greedy that they refuse to sell to that country. So more countries are going to have to get involved with the regulation of loot boxes and microtransactions. While it's good that they are attacking loot boxes on the legal level, they are going to have to do something about microtransactions as well, because there's a chance that if you ban loot boxes altogether, assuming that all countries ban loot boxes, then they're going to try to find some way to get greedy with the microtransactions. So you're going to have to regulate that as well. You can't just regulate one alone. You have to regulate all of it, because the game companies will just do slimy things. That's just how it's always worked. To that end, my suggestion would be creating either an advisory or regulatory organization specific to technologies in all countries. Each country would have its own regulatory or advisory organization, and then those regulatory organizations in all countries would work together as one. That to me is probably the best way to handle it, because then you have the ability to handle the regulations of the video game industry, but also at the same time you have the ability to advise or regulate on technologies being used within those countries. A lot of countries, not just the United States, are very far behind in their regulatory bodies, understanding how this all works and updating the laws to compensate for the changes that have happened within the last couple of years. That's just my take on it. Yeah, that's all I can say. Thanks for listening.